Who is accountable though? That's the question I posed. I was joined by Dr. Shashi Tharoor, Congress MP from Thiruvananthapuram, and M.A. Baby, senior Congress leader, a short while ago. Listen in. And joining us in this moment of Kerala's monumental tragedy are Dr. Shashi Tharoor, the multiple four-time MP from Thiruvananthapuram, and M.A. Baby, the senior CPIM leader. Appreciate both of you joining us. First of all, this is a very sad moment and our thoughts are with the people of Kerala, sir. But Mr. Baby, I want to start with you because today the Home Minister in Parliament has said the Kerala government was given adequate early warnings of an impending catastrophe because of the heavy rains. But the warnings, at least that's what the Home Minister seems to suggest, were not taken seriously enough. Other states like Odisha and Maharashtra took cyclone warnings in the past seriously and acted on them. You did not evacuate people to the extent they should have been from the areas in and around Wayanad.
I am sorry to state that the Honorable Home Minister of India, while speaking in Rajya Sabha today, was not sharing all the facts with the members of Rajya Sabha. Some alert was given, but the Meteorological Survey of India, if my information is right, they were giving only green alert even on 28th and 29th. Similarly, red alert is the highest form of warning. That was never ever given by any central government agencies. Then the NDRF team, 9 teams were sent to Kerala, not on the basis of the information or decision of the central government, but on June 14th, state government demanded that 9 teams of central forces should be sent to Kerala in the eventuality of some untoward things happening. So it is upon the request of the Kerala state government, unlike what Mr. Home Minister claimed in Rajya Sabha. So
no, but
I don't think this is a time to apportion blame.
No, Mr. Baby, did your government move to evacuate people to safer areas? The question arises, could you have evacuated people to safer areas a little bit earlier?
This particular panchayat, Meppadi panchayat, on the basis of the direction given by the state government, the panchayat asked all resorts in the panchayat to close down and evacuate. This is the information I am in possession of now.
Okay. Shashi Tharoor, as you're seeing this battle play out, because you've been in Parliament, the Home Minister has made this statement inside Parliament, almost suggesting that it could have in some way been prevented. What's your sense? Because there are the likes of Dr. Madhav Gadgil, the famous ecologist, who have said that this is a man-made disaster because of the quarrying, the habitation going on in ecologically sensitive areas. And therefore, there's a worry that the Kerala government, or indeed any government in Kerala, whether Congress or CPM, has not seen the warning signals that this ecologically sensitive Western Ghats is being treated with a certain cavalier disdain.
Right. I'm glad you raised the broader issue, but before we get into that, let me just once again say that this is a tragedy that everyone is deeply pained by, and I would like, as far as possible, to stay above politics on this issue. 200 deaths, 500 houses destroyed, still over 200 known to be trapped. It really is an awful, awful situation, and more rainfall is predicted. So I think we have a big issue on our hands. Now, Rajdeep, you raised a good, big, broad question. And that big, broad question is, should we actually be having people living in areas which are prone to this kind of disaster at all? And the short answer is, given Kerala's density of population, it becomes very difficult to avoid that people go and settle wherever they can find land and the prospect of a reasonable livelihood, usually through farming. Now, it's interesting, I've seen Mr. Gadgil's report that the 3 villages that have been destroyed in the course of this horrible landslide were not listed by Mr. Gadgil in the ecologically sensitive areas. And therefore, what's striking is that we have a genuine problem in the Western Ghats generally, but it's not always possible to predict where disaster may strike. Mr. Amit Shah in the Lok Sabha this afternoon, when I was there, you had quoted his Rajya Sabha statement. In the Lok Sabha this afternoon, he claimed that IIT Delhi had issued a report 6 years ago recommending that 4,000 people be relocated from the very area where the tragedy occurred. Now, I have not seen that report, and I would like to take the Home Minister's word for it. If that is true, then questions can well be asked of the government as to why they did not take that report seriously. But it remains to be seen in what form or shape that report was drawn to the attention of the state government. But let us understand some things that go beyond state government, beyond central government. One is a serious issue of climate change. We have seen huge challenges in Kerala. You remember, Rajdeep, the severe drought in 2015, the devastating Oki cyclone in 2017, which affected my constituency, significant floods in 2018 and 2019. So there is no doubt about the ecological vulnerability of Kerala, and landslides are just one symptom of that vulnerability. I've been reading that the global warming has really heated up the Arabian Sea, and this is creating deep cloud systems, creating extremely intense, heavy rainfall that is concentrated in a shorter duration and thereby increases landslide risks. The prediction for this weekend from the meteorological department was about 60 millimeters of rain. They got 320, Rajdeep. So this is what was more than the hill that collapsed could take. It was already saturated by the rain. More rain came, the whole thing collapsed. Now you've got the human angle that you mentioned, the fact that the forests of Wayanad districts have been disappearing under cultivation since 1950. Plantation cover has gone up massively. I've heard figures like 1,800% increase in plantations, whereas until 1950s, around 85% of Wayanad was just forest. Hardly any people. The population has gone up. Now, can we say don't go and live there? And if so, on what grounds? And if so, what better can we do for them? And when Mr. Shah says move 4,000 people out, move them where? To do what? How would they live? These are questions that any government would have to grapple with. Now, we were in opposition. It's very easy for me to join others in taking pot shots at the communist government. But I think we have to ask these questions as human beings. What solutions do we find for the human beings affected?
You know, but I know you're saying that you don't want to get it caught in the political debate, but the fact is, for example, the BJP is also questioning your leader, Rahul Gandhi. He's been the MP of Wayanad for the last 5 years. They're saying if Rahul Gandhi knew that these are landslide-prone areas, as is known by, as is the case, then did Rahul Gandhi raise sufficient red flags? You see, every politician at the moment is admitting that there is a problem. It's an ecological problem. It's a problem of climate change. It's an environmental catastrophe. It's also about illegal quarrying in some of the areas. Rahul Gandhi would have known some of these issues. Did he red flag them? Have we all become wiser after the event? Has it taken a tragedy like this, Dr. Tharoor, to almost become a wake-up call?
It is certainly a wake-up call, but let's make a couple of things clear. The executive responsibility for dealing with such matters is very much with the state government and not with the MP. I'm not saying this merely to defend Rahul Gandhi. He has raised a number of issues to do with Wayanad during his time, but in this particular case, you have to understand the scale of the challenge. About 50% of Kerala's terrain consists of slopes exceeding 20 degrees. I mean, it's almost fertile ground for soil erosion and landslides. There's loose topsoil that's covering the rocks. Many of us have seen videos from the 2018 floods of entire hillsides collapsing even then. It's not that this is completely new or unpredictable. If you wanted an early warning, you had it then too. There are heavy rains, so it's saturating the soil with moisture. Then landslides are triggered. I'm told there are 30 districts in India that have been listed as most landslide-prone districts in the country. 10 of those are in Kerala. 10 of those. And the fact is that in these circumstances, we have a state that is facing a very fundamental issue of ecological fragility. And I don't want to minimize the dangers, but nor do I want to imply that it's easy to solve all this with a warning from an MP in a speech.
No, but the fact is, MA Baby, Shashi Tharoor says executive responsibility rests with the state government. Now, the CPIM has been in power in Kerala for years now. This is your second term in office. You all have been in power since 2016, so for the last 8 years. Now, what has the Kerala government done? The charge is being made that the Kerala government has turned a blind eyes to many of the illegal encroachments, to the hotel resorts that are coming up in a fragile area, to the illegal quarrying, allegedly, according to the likes of Dr. Madhav Gadgil. So the buck really must stop with the state government. Pinarayi Vijayan's government, sir, with due, what has it done to stop these illegalities? What has it done to ensure that you recognize the fragility of this area and the potential dangers and hazards of landslides as a result?
You see, the steps taken by Pinarayi Vijayan government, I don't think that all the details can be narrated now. But no illegal activity in the ecologically fragile hill areas have been permitted by the state government. I am very sure about that. There are no allegation with proof that any illegality, any encroachment in the hilly, ecologically fragile areas have been sanctioned or permitted by the state government. This is a far larger issue. Beyond politics, we have
but
to
none of the
address
plans,
questions.
since the Gadgil report of 2011 pointed out the dangers, no government, whether at the center or state, has been willing to notify it. The fact is the rules are in place. You all have been unwilling to notify it. Now, clearly this is a political hot potato. No one wants to take on the challenge of achieving the balance between environment and livelihoods. And the Kerala government cannot say that they haven't, that they've done enough. They haven't, sir. The truth of the matter is the Kerala government hasn't done enough on the ground.
No, so far as Gadgil report is concerned, there is not much difference on Gadgil report's implementation aspects between the UDF and LDF. Now, no doubt, with all that had happened now, we will have to have a second look at Gadgil report, the areas which needs to be implemented by building consensus among political parties between LDF and UDF and other political forces. We should seriously think about implementing the relevant aspects of Gadgil report. But this is not the time to debate and spend time on that. Now we'll have to fully focus in rescue operation, rehabilitation, and whatever is immediately needed from the government side.
You know, Dr. Tharoor, you mentioned climate change. How seriously does Parliament and do our MPs take the issue of climate change? Is there a need? How many more disasters will it take for us to wake up to what climate change is doing to this country? Last year it was in the Himalayas, in Himachal Pradesh, where we saw unprecedented flooding. This year we are seeing it in Kerala, not for the first time in recent years. We are seeing increasing cyclones across the Arabian Sea, in the Bay of Bengal. How many of our MPs are really sensitized, our policymakers, to what climate change could do to the future?
You're quite right to point this out. I think there is an ongoing tension between the wishes of voters who, after all, rule the roost in democracies. And the advice of experts and ecologists. When voters say, this is what we want to see from our political representative, the political representative tends to follow. Certainly in a place like Kerala, which is a very strong democratic tradition, you cannot be indifferent to the interests of the people concerned. Now, at the same time, there have been an astonishing number of landslides already. In Wayanad, there were landslides during the 2018 floods. There was a 2019 landslide in a place called Puthumala, which claimed 17 lives. There were landslides and heavy rains in 2021. Again, more loss of life, but in much smaller numbers than today. And in 2022 as well. So we've had enough warnings that the system is not going to be able to deal with what we are seeing in terms of the weather changes that have come with climate change. Now, we can explain this to the public. Kerala has an educated public, as we saw during things like the combat against COVID. You could take the public along with the government's measures and restrictions. And I think this is where, as Mr. Baby says, we do need a political consensus so that no side takes advantage of making some difficult decisions, for example, to relocate people. The Home Minister mentioned in the Lok Sabha 4,000 people should have been relocated. But as I said to you, I mean, that requires political consensus, that requires resources, that requires land, that requires livelihood possibilities, all of which you need to be able to provide before you can relocate people. You can't relocate them to nowhere. This is the challenge in a densely populated state like Kerala. And I just want people to understand the scale of the challenge. We are not going to be blithely sort of coming up with solutions on paper that need to be implemented in practice, and that too in the face of resistance from the very people whose lives are at risk, but who at the same time feel their livelihoods would be unsustainable without a better solution. There's also early warning, Rajdeep, which I must say the Home Minister mentioned that in the Lok Sabha. I saw him outside and briefly mentioned to him that I've been reading that this remote sensing, which is what we're doing through ISRO and through bodies like the National Remote Sensing Center, that's not enough. You need actual on-ground sensors to be able to anticipate landslides. Remote sensing is not going to be able to give you enough warning to move people. And that's why I think if Mr. Baby says there was no red alert to move people, it's probably because we're reliant entirely on remote sensing. So there are things like that we can use to improve technology. Get sensor grids on the ground. Get real-time data gathering from these on-ground sensors. And then of course, some data modeling, the kinds of things that technologists can do for us to enable us to have more effective and realistic early warnings. So people are not permanently relocated, perhaps, but every time there is a credible warning, you move them out. And then, of course, if the hillside really collapses and their houses are gone, they have to be relocated anyway. So these are things where at least we can save lives. Right now, we're looking at some real challenges. Again, I'm not an expert on all this myself, but there are apparently conditions developing in parts of Wayanad that the experts call soil piping, which is, air being filled in voids in the subsurface. And that is what leads to landslides. And there's an awful lot of these surface voids being formed as a result of the recent weather incidents since about 2015. Now, in these circumstances, this is not going to be the last piece of bad news, Rajdeep. There will be more landslides in Wayanad. And I'm not even an expert. I'm just telling on the basis of what I've read. So that's the situation we have to be prepared for.
Okay. Let's leave it there. Dr. Tharoor and M.A. Baby, as I said at the outset, our thoughts today, our prayers are with the people of your home state of Kerala, of the people of this country. It has been a monumental tragedy. And we hope that the lessons of Wayanad are learned. It's in that spirit that we brought the two of you together. I really do hope that there will be both accountability for the mistakes that have been made, as well as the hope that some of those mistakes that can be controlled by humans at least will be avoided in the future. So thank you both very much for joining me, M.A. Baby and Dr. Shashi Tharoor.